Hi, this is Afshan Khan. As I said in the previous video, for this video I am going to talk about Muslim identity, the second part of the book of Saffron, Flags and Skullcaps by Ziya Salam. So in the second part he mainly talks about the whole process of otherization of Muslims, that how Muslims have become others in India. He says that Muslims have become the other in India, and this is something which has been normalized in the current times. He talks about a lot of things in second part, which is very interesting and quite satisfactory. He gives quite satisfactory arguments, and because he does not see, when it comes to the allegations of people against Islam or against the whole community, Muslim community, he gives answers from either from the evidences from history, and he quotes Quran directly. So I think that's quite interesting as well as satisfactory. That's why I said that the arguments provided in second parts are quite satisfactory. So he starts the second part by arguing that I am the other. This is the phrase that he uses at the starting of the second part. He says, I am the other, and he starts he discusses about those people who have projected Muslims as the other. So he says that M.S. Golwalkar was one, and Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay was one, and there are many people who have claimed that Muslims are the other in India and they need to be eliminated. So what M.S. Golwalkar did was that he made an expression against Muslims, which is identical to calling Muslims as asuras, which means demon, and Yavana. And Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, whom we usually read during our school days, and we kind of celebrate the text written by him, which is Anand Mat, because he had given us the idol of Bharat Mata, Pratima of Bharat Mata, and Ziya Salam is saying that in Anand Mat, personally I haven't read Anand Mat, so I don't know, but after reading this book I'm planning to read Anand Mat by Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, because we need to understand and we need to know why such kind of phrases used against Muslims, or for that matter against any community, can be celebrated, and how can they be awarded for using such kind of language? Because he is arguing that Anand Mat has expressions against Muslims such as bearded degenerates, and he has projected Muslims as enemies which need to be thrown out of India. And he argues that movements like Ghar Wapsi, which have started in the recent years, is not something new. This again has roots during the time of independence movement, or before the independence struggle. And there was we all know that the role of Gita press in mobilizing people and politicizing a lot of events, and how they had spread hatred against one community for the another. And you can see I have a book by Akshaya Mukul on Gita press and making of Hindu nation, Hindu India. So we all know about Gita press. Most of us know about Gita press, but I didn't know about a journal which he has mentioned, Hindu Punch. This is a journal which he says, Ziya Salam says, that it has carried highly objectionable columns like choti banam dadi, means Brahman versus Muslims. So this is objectionable, and he says that there were movements like Shuddhi movements were there at that time as well, and people attempted at making Hindu Sangathan to throw Muslims out of this country because they were considered as Ravanas. Even he has mentioned the name of certain people like Ram Shankar Katheria and Ashok Lavanya, and he says that once Ashok Lavanya made a comment by saying that the revenge of the killing of one brother demands the killing of 10 Rakshas. So here she has referred to Muslims as Rakshas. So the details are quite shocking and disheartening as well, but I think it's a kind of responsibility for people like Ziya Salam to bring this kind of truths in front of us, so that we get to know that such kind of people have been involved in spreading hatred, and most of us did not even pay attention towards such things. So this is what makes the book very important for us to read, to understand that something like Ghar Vapsi moment or incidents like mob lynching doesn't occur suddenly. We all have the responsibility to know the history behind all such things. And Ziya Salam is complaining that even after 90 years, nothing has changed. I continue to be the Asura, the Rakshas, the demon. And he talks about the incidents such as which happened in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, and Delhi's Begumpur. And he says that never mind that the accusers who claim to love Swami Vivekanand and V.D. Savarkar did not have an idea of what they stood for. Now he brings a very shocking for those who have not read Savarkar detail, that Savarkar was someone like these people who are involved in mob lynching and kill people in the name of cow protection. They claim that they are the followers of Savarkar and Vivekanand, but they really don't understand what Savarkar had stood for. So Ziya Salam details and he quotes Jyotirmaya Sharma, who wrote in 2011 that Savarkar had ridiculed the idea that cow dung and urine could purify the impure. And he said that in terms of usefulness, a buffalo, a horse, a dog, and even a donkey, they are animals that are equally useful. And to consider the cow as holy is not only madness but a sign of utter foolishness, concludes Savarkar. So I think most of the people are not aware that Savarkar had ridiculed this idea of that cow dung or cow urine can purify an impure, or it can be considered, it should be worshipped. So he said that worshipping cow is like dehumanizing the human identity. Further, he says that Ziya Salam complains that if a Muslim man saves the life of Hindu pilgrims, that is not something which is widely recognized. And in modern day India, a Muslim cannot be a winner. So he comes to the conclusion that a Muslim has been a loser for quite a long time, and the people who have no history of patriotism or who have no roots in getting India freedom, they project Muslims as the perpetual others and enemies. So he's complaining that. And Ziya Salam the author talks about his personal life experiences, like how he used to sit with his colleagues and he had a discussion about terms such as Islamic terrorism, and he was often questioned on cricket matches between India and Pakistan, and they would expect him to support Pakistan, which I think is the case with almost every Muslim in India. I think I personally was also at some point of time was questioned that do I support Pakistan, and they ask if I support India or not. So I think this is something which has been normalized, and I think people take it for granted, but these are serious issues. So Ziya Salam complains, and he is actually angry at such kind of incidences. He says that why can't I live my life like a little stream that joins the mainstream yet manages to retain its identity. So he is saying that why can't I continue with my Muslim identity? Why can't I wear a pajama when a friend of mine who is a non-Muslim can wear a dhoti? So why don't I have the freedom to hold on my identity? And he says, why can't I enjoy the simple joys of life? Why can't I just be an Indian? So this is the this is the fear and anger of every Indian Muslim who encounters such kind of questions. And he in one chapter of this part, he deals with the situation of Muslims residing in Delhi, and he compares their situation with that of Muslims living in Jammu. And this perspective was something which is very new to me, and in order to explain this phenomena, he uses the book of he takes the reference from the book of Zafar Chaudhary, which is called Kashmir Conflict and Muslims of Jammu. It was written in 2015, where Ziya Salam says, indeed the Muslims of Jammu, not exactly at peace with the Muslims of the valley, not trusted much by the Hindus of Jammu, are often in no-win situation. So this is something which a very few people talk about, the problem of Muslims in Jammu, because they are neither accepted by Muslims in Kashmir, neither nor by the people in Jammu. So they are in no-win situation. And moving forward, he discusses about the role of Jamiatul Ulama Hind in the making of India and in the freedom struggles, and he quotes Arshad Madani, the president of Jamiatul Ulama Hind, who said that if we do not unite, he said it much before, and he said it at the time when the demand of partition was being put forward. So he said Arshad Madani has said that if we do not unite today, the consequences will be terrible for the country. Arshad Madani in one of his speeches had said that we are being questioned on nationalism by those who do not have a track record of patriotism, and by the people who did not fight for the independence for the country, and who even took side of the Britishers. So here he is addressing, talking about the RSS and Hindu Mahasabha. So Ziya Salam is trying to remind us that Jamiatul Ulama Hind had played a very crucial role in freedom struggle, and how Muslim leaders at that time stood against the demand of partition, and how they very sharply criticized the demand of Jinnah and the demand of Pakistan. people like Allah Baksh had strongly stood against the partition. So his reason for reminding us the contribution of Jamaat is very simple, that we should see who were the people who stood for India and who were the people who stood against India. And in order to tell us that we should not question the patriotism of those who took a stand for their country, who did not insult the national flag or national anthem. And Jamiatul Ulama Hind was one of those. Also, he discusses about the idea of jihad and ishtihad. Jihad is a word which is commonly misunderstood and misinterpreted, and the author here does not blame the non-Muslims for doing this. He at large says that Muslims are also responsible for it, because among Muslims and non-Muslims the discussion is mostly about jihad and not about ijtihad. So he says that both the terms come at the core of, both the terms are come at the core of Islam. But ijtihad is something which has been ignored. He says that jihad is about self-control, control over one's own nafs, and ijtihad is something which is independent and it's about rational thinking. So Quran always encourages rational thinking, and how can we easily ignore this core idea of Islam? And he also blames the Maulanas for not encouraging people to put questions, to ask questions about deen, and they usually ignore them by saying that there should be no question when it comes to faith. So Ziya Salam says that okay, Quran is about faith, but if you don't understand it, how your faith would be strengthened? He says that Quran is something which has to be taught, the meaning of which has to be taught, and here Islam doesn't have to do anything with arrogance. So we should get involved with these things so that people get to know their rights, and this is the reason why most of the Muslim women don't know what are their rights. And he brings forward the discussion of mosque and entry of Muslim women in mosque, masjid. So he says that he talks about about a lady who is 76 years old, and her name is Ikhlasi Begum, and he says that there was she, for the first time, she prayed in masjid on the day of Eid, and she didn't know that she has the right to enter to the mosque and she can pray in mosque. And again the author says that if you don't teach, if Maulanas don't teach the women the meaning of Quran, and all the Muslims the meaning of Quran, then how would they realize their rights? So he says that there was a time when her husband had died, and she was having some problems. So someone advises her to read Quran by meaning and not just reciting it. So she, once she gets engaged with the Quran, she reads the translation. A lot of problems of her are erased, and now she realizes that she has a lot of rights which she did not know about. And then he moves to the discussion of Dr. Farhat Hashmi, about whom he says that she is a lady who, hailing from Pakistan and based in Canada, has brought a kind of revolution in the world of Muslim women, because there was a time when Muslim women only used to stay within the four walls of their house, and they would not step out of their house to and to read, and that too about Quran. It was something that surprised them. But now, after this lady has introduced a course, basic course and advanced course in Quran, now women particularly and even men have started reading Quran, word to word meaning and explanation and translation of Quran, and by this people are really getting benefited. So here the author appreciates her, and I would like to quote him from the book, where he says, where qualified Maulanas from places as distinguished as Darul Uloom Deoband or Nadwatul Ulama failed to get the common Indian Muslim to know the meaning of the Quran, a foreign woman succeeded. So he is appreciating her steps, and he is amazed that how this is possible, that her students are capable of teaching their students exactly in the same way as she teaches them, and they don't usually don't indulge in misinterpreting Quran. So all the credits goes to this lady, Dr. Farhat Hashmi. And he also says that even men have started listening to her, and they are realizing what is the importance and meaning of Quran. At the last, he comes to the discussion of not being the other. So while there are some Muslims who know their religion or don't know religion, but they are proud of being Muslims, they are the other, they are considered as the other, because they this is the idea is projected in such a way that Muslims are a threat to India and things like that. So Ziya Salam argues that there are also people who are not the other in this whole scenario. And who are these? One example is that of Noor Zahir, who is a lady who had written a book in 2015 which is titled as Denied by Allah, and she goes around with the intention to provoke. This is his argument. Because he says that there are a lot of things which are written, there are a lot of verses in Quran which are written in support of women, which provide women the right, and she clearly says, she cites the example from these verses only, but she says that these verses are against the rights of Muslim women. So he says that this is very disrespectful and dishonestly, she has argued dishonestly, and she tries to pass on the verses of Quran, verses of Bible through telling that these verses are from Quran.